Welcome back. I'm so happy that we're able to be having our students here in person this year. It is a wonderful thing to walk through the halls and to see their faces again. They might be covered halfway with a mask, but I'm just happy to have them here and have their bodies in the building. I think it's important for them. And we've had a really successful start to the school year. And the information that you're going to be learning about today is really helpful. These counselors are a great resource. They're a great support for your students. So please take advantage of it. And if you have any questions or concerns in regards to anything that I can help you with, my door is always open. You can call me, email me, or schedule an appointment. I'd be happy to meet with you. I hope you have a great year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Glynn. I did start the recording now, so any of our parents that tune in later, you did miss a little bit of my intro where I just kind of talked about what it is this presentation will be about in terms of counseling the college applicant and what parents should be doing now and talking to their children about now and how to prepare for the college application process. That's going to start really at about middle to end of this school year. So next, I would like to introduce Ms. Cadell, who is one of our 10th grade counselors, Ms. Brown, who's one of our 10th grade counselors, Ms. Lawler, 10 through 12, and Ms. Acosta. So Ms. Brown, if you want to put the presentation up now, and we can get started. Also, so everybody knows there will be time at the end of this to ask questions. So we just ask that you keep your questions to the end. You'll be able to ask using the chat box or even join our webinar and ask your questions live at the end of the presentation.
Mrs. Karuba, I just want to mention Mr. Lombardo as well.
Oh, Mr. Lombardo, how could I forget you?
It's
yeah,
okay.
Mr. Lombardo, one of our vice principals.
Thank you, Ms. Glynn. Thank you, Ms. Karuba. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to let you know that I'm the disciplinarian for all the 11th graders, but not only the disciplinarian, but I also try and help them along the way to get to class while they're in the hallway and all that good stuff. If you ever need anything, just reach out to me via email or phone. Thank you.
This is Mr. Lombardo's first year with us, and we love having him. He is such an advocate for our students, and he really is fantastic. So thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Gab. So here is the counselors' breakdowns of the alphabet. So if you're unsure of who your child's counselor is, it goes by last name. So we have Ms. Cadell with A through GR, Ms. Acosta GO through LE, E, and Ms. Brown LEV to RI, and Ms. Lawler RO to Z. Now keep in mind, this is the alpha breakdown just for our juniors. It does change for the 10th and 12th graders just slightly. So if for some reason you do have a child in another grade level, just keep in mind it is a slight change per grade. You can go to the next one. Okay. Just to kind of talk to you a little bit about the school counseling curriculum that we have. You know, we do a lot of things with our juniors. This is really when we start to focus with them on all of the college planning. But in September and October, we strongly advise that our juniors and seniors participate in virtual college fairs. I included the two websites that we encourage them to go to. The majority of them are in September and October, but they do have them throughout the year and start up again strong in the spring. This is a great way for students to get to hear from many different colleges. You know, some of these college fairs have up to 200 colleges at them. So we strongly advise that parents and students take advantage of these. In November, we have this event, and we really start to counsel our parents on the college application. November through January, we start to go into the juniors' classrooms. A lot of the times it's history and English, and we start to advise them on how to use Naviance, what they should be doing, what entrance exam they're taking, if it's the SAT or the ACT, and we start to get them prepared for that, especially in January. In January is when we are going to be getting our PSAT results in. So the PSAT is what our juniors took back in October, and those PSAT results are going to be uploaded into a program called Khan Academy, and all of our students will be able to get free SAT tutoring through Khan Academy. So just keep that in mind. I'll send another letter out to all of our families in January, letting them know that that's up and running and how they can participate. January through March, our guidance department meets one-to-one with all of our students to prepare their schedules for next school year. So this is something to think about. Again, there will be an email that goes out. We will send the program of studies, which lists all of our courses. And that meeting really is tailored to your child and to what they need in order to get into the colleges that they're looking for. March, we hold our college panel event. I'm hoping that this year we are able to do that in person. And what it is we have about 6 colleges from around the country come to speak to our students about what it is that they look for in a college application, as well as what kind of different programs they offer at their school, whether it be different majors, Greek life, athletics, interscholastic sports. And if our kids attend these programs from grades 9 through 11, they'll get to hear from about 30 different colleges. So it really is a great program that we strongly encourage everyone to participate in. This year, Bergen County College Fair will also be at Ramapo College on March 16th. That is in person, and they normally have about 300 different colleges that attend. So mark your calendars for that date and definitely plan to have your children, and you should attend with them as well to that event. It's fantastic. And in April to June is when we begin meeting with our juniors and really tailoring specifically their application process plans. Just to kind of go over today's agenda with you again quickly, we are going to talk to you guys about the SAT and ACT and which college placement test is going to be better for your child and how you can determine that. We're also going to talk to you about a junior. Oh, you know what? Actually, I want to mention something. So this year, and it's not set in stone yet, but we are looking to offer an in-school SAT. So this would be an opportunity for all of our juniors to take the SAT in the school building. We're just trying to work out whether or not that is going to be, it is going to be something that we're able to do during the school day. So definitely keep an eye out again from email communications from me on that, but we're really hoping to do this, and it would really benefit all of our kids. We're also going to talk to you about the junior year checklist and timeline and how to use Naviance. Now, Naviance is our computer application software. I'm sure you've heard your children mention it before or us mention it before at some of our other meetings, but we're going to kind of show you exactly what that looks like today. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Acosta, who will begin on the SAT versus ACT.
Good morning. How is everybody? I hope everybody's fine. So we wanted to go over the comparison between the SAT and the ACT. I'm going to go with the left-hand side first, the SAT. So if you take a look, the SAT has fewer geometry questions. It has more time per question, but it does have a no calculator math section. So I do want you to be aware of that. The test itself takes 3 hours in total. The scores run minimum from 200 to maximum of 800. There is a reading section that takes 65 minutes, a writing section that takes 35 minutes. There's a math with no calculator for 25 minutes, and there is another math section with the calculator that it takes 55 minutes. So the total number of points will range from a minimum of 400 to a maximum of 1,600. So you are given 75 seconds per question for reading, 48 seconds per question for writing, and 83 seconds per question for math. So that's the SAT. Let's go to the right, the SAT, yes, let's go to the right side to the ACT, I'm sorry. The ACT has lots of geometry. It is faster paced, and it does have a tough science section. The ACT takes 2 hours and 55 minutes. The score, the minimum score is 1, the maximum is 36. There is a reading section that takes 35 minutes, an English section that takes 45 minutes, a math section that takes 60 minutes, and a science section that takes 35 minutes. The composite score runs anywhere minimum from 1 to 36. Here, you're given 53 seconds per question for the reading, 36 seconds per question for the English, and 60 seconds per question for the math. Okay, we go to the next slide. So these are the dates that the ACT is given and the dates for the SAT. The asterisk means that they will be given here at Fort Lee High School. Most of these are, I think they're all Saturday dates. So you can mark your calendar. Remember, you should be planning on, if we're going into the next screen, to register for at least one exam in the spring. It doesn't matter whether it's SAT or ACT, you'll have to decide based on your student's preference. You would go to sign online for the SAT at collegeboard.org or for ACT at act.org. If a student is eligible for free and reduced lunch, please keep that status updated, because they might qualify for a fee waiver and not have to pay for the exam. We also don't want the students to walk into an exam cold without having practice for it. So we encourage you to enroll them in a preparation program. Programs such as C2 Education, Kaplan, Princeton Review, and Huntington all cost money. Khan Academy is on College Board and it's free, but please have them do one of those preparations. Okay, and without further ado, we go to our next slide, and Ms. Cadell, is it, or Mr. Lawler? You're muted.
Yes, it's me. Okay, so the second part of our checklist for junior year is to make sure that all of our students are scheduled in the courses that they are not just interested in, but also are required to take to graduate. Okay, so this will be done one-to-one, January through March with the counselor, and we'll take a look at the transcript, make sure they have everything that they need. And then the nice thing about senior year is this is the first opportunity that they're going to have to choose electives that are, related more to the major that they might want to study in college. Okay, so when we sit down to choose those grade 12 courses, it's definitely a good idea to check out our program of studies prior to that meeting. Sometimes parents and students are surprised at the number of different courses that we offer here. Our program of studies is on the FLBOE website. Ms. Brown, if you want.
Sorry.
On the main page, right under curriculum and instruction, you would click program of studies 21-22. It is a big document, about 100 pages, but it gives a nice description of all of the classes that we offer here. And it's very important for our juniors to sit and actually look through that with you. So this way they're aware of what's offered, because actually senior year, there's a lot less requirements. So it's not going to be us, the counselor, telling you what you need to take in order to graduate. Okay, and our suggestion is always in terms of electives that are related to your major. So if a student is interested in engineering, you're going to want to check out the different engineering programs at the colleges you're interested in, and make sure that you're taking classes that expose you to some of that material. For example, we usually suggest the high-level math for our engineering students, pre-calc, definitely calc if it's possible. Also, it's a good idea to have physics under your belt, and possibly an AP physics if they can. Students that are interested in healthcare, anything within medical, be a good idea to take our anatomy and physiology elective, and if they're able to, and if they qualify, to take that AP bio class. So this will all get done, like I said, one-to-one, and we'll have those conversations with all of our juniors. Okay, the next part of our checklist is to really prepare for senior year. So we like to start this conversation now in November. So this way you have all of junior year to prepare. And when you come in senior year, you feel a lot less stressed because you feel ready to make those, to do the applications. And as a parent, it is important to start having the conversations now, really about the types of colleges that you're comfortable with your son or daughter applying to. So basic things just like, you know, a small or a big school, if you are okay with them dorming, or if you would prefer for them to commute, if they like a city, a more urban atmosphere, or if they would like to be, you know, more rural. And honestly, the distance from home, that is a big thing that comes up in our meetings. You know, sometimes kids think they're going across the country and the parents want them to stay in New Jersey. So that starting that conversation now is pretty important. Then at the schools that you're looking at, you want to start looking at the types of programs that they offer and, you know, whether or not you meet the criteria for that particular school. Okay, so some tips that I usually give my students is when you are looking for schools, it's a good idea to have both public and private schools on your list, and both in-state and out-of-state schools on your list. This way you hedge your bets in terms of merit-based scholarships. And it's also a really good idea to have schools on your list that you over exceed the entrance criteria. Okay, so if you have a really great GPA of 3.8, 3.9, it's a good idea to apply to some schools that take a 3.0, a 3.2, because now you're going to be in the running for more of their merit-based scholarship money and different programs that they might offer through that school. Okay. We also suggest to our families, try not to focus only on the ratings of the school, of the college, because you want to make sure that it's a good fit academically, emotionally, and of course, financially. And when creating this list, you want to make sure also that it is a realistic list. We see all too often here students only putting reach schools on their list. And unfortunately, what then happens in May when you're going to make your enrollment deposit is they don't have as many options had they set up their list with some reach, mostly targets, and then a safe school. Okay, so we always encourage our students to aim high, but with all of those reach schools, you want to balance out your list with a realistic target as well. Okay. And, you know, I'm a huge believer in being a big fish in a small pond. And I think there's a lot to be said about going to a school that you are that big fish in a small pond. Okay, so with all of this, you know, that's a lot to think about. And sometimes then parents say, okay, that's great. How do we get started? Okay, so you can get started searching. You can use College Board, you can use College Scorecard, but here at Fort Lee, we do utilize Naviance, and students have access to Naviance as well as each parent. Okay, and if you would like to go on with your son or daughter, you could totally do that. Or you can have your own account and we can get that to you. So you can also do some searching. Okay, so this is our student, Betty Bridgman. She is a junior and she's looking to start this process. And she wants to start adding some schools to her colleges I'm thinking about list. Okay, so the first place to look over in the left-hand side is the Advanced College Search. She knows that she would like to go to a four-year school. She has no preference whether or not it's single sex or co-ed. She also has no preference about public or private. Okay, in terms of location though, her parents told her that they want her to stay in New Jersey. Okay, and in terms of a major, she's thinking maybe accounting would be something that fits her well. She was one of our AOF kids, so she's going to add all of these potential majors. And then when you click View Matches, it's going to show you the schools in New Jersey that match the criteria that you put in that search. Okay, so after she looks at this, maybe she's heard of some of these schools, maybe she hasn't. If she would like to add them to her list, she's going to click the box to the left of maybe Drew, maybe FDU, Kane. This is one of our New Jersey state schools, Kane. Monmouth down in Long Branch, that's one of our New Jersey private schools. Montclair is pretty popular. College of New Jersey down near Trenton. And maybe even Rowan. We can click Rowan. Okay, then when she loves it or presses the heart, and she's going to automatically add all of these schools to her colleges I'm thinking about list. Now, juniors can have 3 schools on this list or, you know, 35 schools on this list. This is kind of a work in progress, so you can continue to do research and see whether or not you make the cut for this school. Okay, one of the first things to do is press the Compare Me button. And that's going to show you how you stack up against the other students from Fort Lee that have gotten in. Okay, so down at the bottom there, Rowan, we had 100 and, oh, sorry, just scroll up a little, Gab. It's
Oh,
low.
sorry.
124 students, and now a little bit further down. Out of the 209 students got into Rowan, and the average GPA of those 124 students has been a 3.3. Okay, so that is telling Betty, the reason she has a green check there, Betty's GPA is a 3.7. So that's telling her that this is a pretty nice target school. She does over exceed in terms of her GPA. Her SAT scores, you could see in the middle there, are 1100. Okay, and for Rowan, Rowan happens to be a test optional school. They were test optional for 3.5 GPAs and above, even pre-COVID. And now post-COVID, most of these schools, if not all of them, have gone test optional as well. Okay, so she would then make a decision when Betty meets with her counselor, should I submit my scores or shouldn't? Or shouldn't I? And I would say based on this list right here, this is a pretty nice list in terms of she does have her public and private on here. And because her parents want her to stay in New Jersey, it's a nice mix of public and private New Jersey state schools, and then some of the privates as well. Okay, so that's one thing to do. Now, let's say, you know what, she didn't hear much about Monmouth. She wants to know more. She's going to click on the Monmouth. And this will take her to a profile page. On the profile page, you can see a little bit about the just general enrollment, whether it's big or small. And then up top, when she clicks admissions, it's going to show her in a different way than that Compare Me page, how many students have applied. Okay, so last year in 2021, 6 students applied and 3 were accepted. And this year so far, we have 2 students that were applying. The scattergram on the bottom is going to show her where she stands. You can kind of see her right there with her 3.7 and her 1100. She's around a lot of green checks. So that's going to tell her that this is a really nice school for her and that she would probably get in. You know, nothing is black and white with the college admissions because there's so many variables that go into it, but this is giving her at least a Fort Lee perspective on our current trends and patterns over the years. Okay, and if she wants to know a little bit more, the best place to do your research for any school is to click on their website. Obviously, this gets updated first prior to Naviance. And here's where, you know, we'll talk about this later, but here's where you're going to set up those visits. Usually it's in the main line where you could visit a school, check it out, see if they're offering anything virtual and things of that nature that I know Ms. Cadell will talk about later. And this is how you start putting your list together. Okay, so as a parent, one of the most important things you can do is to be open to going on those tours, start the conversation, and kind of put your parameters on, you know, what you would like them to put on their list. Okay, and then another aspect of college applications Ms. Brown's going to talk about is going to be the letters of recommendation.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Lawler. So Naviance has a ton of great features. So if you haven't already gotten onto this website, please encourage your son or daughter to do it. Go on with them. Like Ms. Lawler said, if you don't remember your login or, you know, it was probably given to you in freshman year, please reach out to your individual guidance counselor so we can get you that information. So another great feature about Naviance is the resume builder, and also how we use this Naviance program to ask for letters of recommendation. So to get to the resume builder, your student will go to the home page where I am right now, and you'll go to the top right. It will have your son or daughter's initials, and it will say About Me. So you'll click on About Me, you'll click on Resume. And we had already done one for Betty Bridgman, and you know, it lists it like this when you add it on, and then when you go to print it or export it to download or to email to someone, then it comes out as a professionally looking resume. So yes, there are students that, sorry, my light keeps turning off. Okay, So sorry about that. There are students that prefer using the, Googling resume on Google and using that format. But if you really have no idea where to start, this resume feature on Naviance is the best thing to do. You plug in your experiences, whether it's internships, work, extracurriculars, sports, community service, music things that you've done, or simply maybe doing things around the house. Maybe you can't work because you have to pick up a younger sibling from school. That's things that you can put in on this. So, and then you plug them in and it puts it in a format that includes your information at the top and then bullets everything very nicely throughout the resume. So this is something that we encourage our students to use. They can use this to give to us. They can use it to give to their teachers that they're asking for letters of recommendation. They can download it to their computer. They can upload it onto applications. I have a student that just told me yesterday she's using her resume because she has an interview next week for one of the Ivy League schools. So, this is a feature that a student is going to need throughout the application process, and Naviance does a really great job of making it easy for them. So that is one great feature that they have. Part of the application process, besides obviously applying and having this done, is letters of recommendation. So I'm going to go over to, again, the About Me section, because one of the recommendations that's required is one from the school counselor. So in order for us to write the best letter for your son or daughter, they would need to fill out a survey for us. So it's down here, surveys from your school, high school, pre-college survey. So these are questions similar to, like, maybe other schools call it like a brag sheet. We want them to try their best in answering these questions. And if there's some that they can't answer, that's fine. But in the ones that they can, we want as much detail as possible, as long as they're okay, with providing that detail. Because, you filling out this survey lets us know that we can use this information in the college recommendation letter. So, the better a student makes themselves sound in this survey, the better the letter will sound on our end. So it's very important that they take the time to fill this out and put as much information so that on our end, we can include that in the letter of recommendation. So they don't have to request a letter from us. We know based on the colleges that they're applying to that we will most likely need to write a letter for most of our seniors. So as long as they just get this survey done by the end of their junior year, they're in great shape, and we'll make sure to either write it over the summer if they can get it by then, or early in the fall once we're in the thick of the application process. So that's the counselor recommendation letter. In addition to the counselor recommendation letter, many colleges will request a letter of recommendation from teachers. So our advice to our students is you should get one from a STEM teacher, you should get one from a humanities teacher. If a student is applying to a school of engineering, then it could look better to have a math and science. So that's all part of the conversation that we have with your son or daughter during, the college meeting that we have this spring, and then again when we have it in the fall. So, but most of the time it's safe to get one from each. If we have a student like Betty Bridgman, who's in the AOF program, they've been in that program since freshman year. They should be asking someone in business because they probably had that teacher more than one time. And that's what we recommend, a junior year teacher or a teacher that you'll have more than once. Maybe you have a coach that's also been a teacher, that would be great. The same with the ATA, our acting students, if you've been with Madame Etra since freshman year, she should be someone that writes your letter of recommendation. So again, something that we will consult with your son or daughter as we get to that point of who they should ask. Another point is, when should they ask? So this is something they really should do at the end of this year in April or May, because many of our teachers have a limit to how many letters they can write. It takes a lot of time. So they want to use the time over the summer to prepare their letters, and they don't want to overwhelm themselves either. So if you ask them in the springtime, at least it gives them the opportunity in the summer to write that letter, and you are, one of the first on their list to ask. So it's better that you ask in the spring. Now, we want you to have that conversation. We want your son or daughter to have that conversation in person. You should never just send them an email or send them a request on Naviance on its own. You should have the conversation face to face with the teacher. If it's a current teacher, after class one day, after school, if it's a teacher that you had last year that you're almost certain you'll have the next year, then try to email them what's the best time to meet with you during the school day and have that conversation in person. Once they say, yeah, of course, I'm going to write your letter of recommendation, we'll advise our students to go under the letters of recommendation section, and they're going to add the request. They'll find their teacher and they'll, say general request. So it's sent to all schools. And then a little note saying, thank you again for agreeing to write my letter. Let me know if you need any information from me to help you write it. And they'll submit their request and the teacher will get that request on Naviance. So again, asking it in person and requesting it afterwards once they agree to it on Naviance. So those are two excellent features that we use in the application process. So I wanted to make you aware. Going back to the homepage. So there's a lot on this page. You can get to almost everything from this page. So there's some messages that we'll send from our guidance office. If there's a scholarship available, if there's a school visiting us, actually all of our college visits are listed under here. So that's something to always check when you get onto your Naviance page. And then lastly, on the bottom left, there are links that you will inevitably run into during the application process. So if you forget, oh, how do I get to College Board to register for the SATs? Or how do I apply for financial aid? All those important links, I'll click view all, are on the bottom of the Naviance homepage. So, one of the, Common App, and I'll explain that in the next slide, the universal application used by many of our schools. College Board is the SAT website. FAFSA is the financial aid application. And then if your son or daughter is interested in playing collegiate sports, they have to register with the NCAA clearinghouse, because if they're going to compete in a Division I or a Division II level school, they need to have themselves registered so that they can be checked for academic eligibility. So that's another website there that's important, ACT and so on. Okay. So now I want to just jump back into the presentation. Oh no. Oh, here we go. Okay. To our next slide. So again, I mentioned common application. So how do I apply? I have now all of these schools on my thinking about list. I'm going into the summer months. I've had my junior meeting with my counselor. Now what do I do? So we discussed the fact that common application is one general application used by many schools. So I'm going to show you how I know that. So if you're on your students' thinking about list, Ms. Lawler and I made this list for Betty Bridgman, you'll see delivery type has an icon of a computer screen with CA written in that. That means those are Common App schools. So literally all 7 of these schools take one application in order to apply, and that is the common application. So we're going to encourage our students to apply via the Common App and start it as early as the summer. I mean, it doesn't hurt to create an account, not saying that you should apply in the summer, but create an account, look around, look what questions they ask, look at the writing prompts that they offer. Another great feature about the Naviance homepage is that we do list the essay prompts that really don't change very much year to year. So your son or daughter can look at it, in the spring of their junior year, in the summer of into their senior year, and start drafting up an essay, sharing it with others, seeing, what they have to change by the time that they come in the fall. I can tell you that almost all of my seniors that started this in the summer felt much more relaxed coming into the school year, knowing that they got a lot of this done ahead of time. So we highly encourage our juniors, when we get into our junior meetings, do as much as you can over the summer to lessen the amount that you have in the fall when you apply, because you could apply as early as November 1st, and you're going to be starting that as early as September. So let me go back into the college list. Things that you do over the summer besides looking at the applications and perhaps starting the writing prompts is you'll want to finalize your list. So after doing research, going on the websites, maybe doing some college visits in the spring or the summer, you're going to eventually move the schools that you absolutely want to apply to over to the apply to list. So unfortunately, right now, Betty is still a junior. The feature that has them move to the application list would be sitting right about here in between update, interest, and remove. That will come up in the summer of their senior year. So they would move the colleges over to the apply to list. So, and it would appear under this screen. And this is how us as counselors know where your son or daughter is applying. So if they don't come down to tell us themselves, as long as they have it on this list, we know where they're applying. Around the summertime or early fall, you'll want to also discuss with your students, how do you want to apply? Do you want to apply early? Should we stick to the regular date of January? And if you do want to apply early, there are those two options. There's the options of early action, EA, as we refer to it, or there's the ED options, so which is early decision. So early action meaning you're probably applying November 1st, you're showing interest because you're applying early, but there's no strings attached. You don't have to attend that school if you get accepted. Early decision is a contractual agreement. You, your parent, the counselor, they're all signing a contract saying, if I'm accepted to an early decision school, then I have to go to that school. And if that's too much of a commitment for a family to make, then we encourage the student just to apply regular. But making the decision about early action or early decision can come as early as the summer or early fall. And then, of course, finalizing your list and preparing for the SAT exam if you choose to take it again in the fall. And there are dates, a lot of dates in the fall to take it in time to apply. So to give more information about scheduling visits and other college options, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Cadell.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Good morning, everyone. So with all that being said, there's a lot of information being talked about today. Naviance, of course, being very important, having your child think about schools at this point, and also, of course, into the springtime. But one of the most important things that you can do in this process is actually visiting a campus. You know, there's a lot to say about, you know, actually walking on campus, getting the feel of the school, seeing the surrounding areas, checking out the dorms if your child decides to dorm, but there's a lot to be said about the actual atmosphere of the school. So therefore, you know, you can create a list, you could put 15, 20 schools on a list on Naviance, but I would suggest at this time, and it's never too early to start visiting, that you start maybe a visit even now, right? Maybe visit a few schools in the springtime and definitely over the summer. Depending on the schools, you know, with COVID, some schools are still virtual option, but some campuses are opening up. So that's something you can check out. You can do that on Naviance by going directly to the school, as we talked about earlier. But it's just a good way to get a feel of a school. It helps them to demonstrate the interest of the school, checking out the campus, seeing the programs that are offered, going to admissions. You know, some things, of course, you can do, take some pictures while on campus, take notes if it's a virtual tour. And keep in mind that even if it's a virtual tour, every time that you log into that particular school, they kind of register that. So they know your interest level. Also just reach out to admissions, say, you know, my name is so-and-so and your school is #1 on my list, even if it's not, just to show that you're interested and start making that connection with the school. Your student can also be excused to visit a campus if it's a weekday and they want to visit a school. They just need to get a form from guidance. Their guidance counselor has to sign it. Administrator has to sign it, the parent, and they just have to bring proof back to us that they actually visited that school. Another thing that your child can do and you can do with them is visit this website, yourteenmag.com, for additional resources. This is a pretty good website that has a lot of articles regarding the college process, regarding questions that come up between you and your child, just basically more information. So it's a great resource as well. The other thing too to think about, and again, this is all conversation with your guidance counselor, there are other options out there. Maybe your child is not really ready to go to a 4-year campus or 4-year school, and that's totally fine as well. A lot of our students decide to do community college for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and then transfer to a different school. So depending, you know, on your child's ability and on your child's interest, there's other options out there. Aside from that, there's great trade schools that your child could get involved with. Employment, some of our students decide to work full-time and maybe go to college at a later point. And then there's also the military, who we have military, all branches of military coming to our school at least once a month, if not more. They set up a table and, you know, they just give some kids the information. So it's just kind of giving them more information and more options for them.
All right, and lastly, so all parents do have the ability to have a Naviance account, and we will have to register you. So all students have an account already and should be able to get in there. If they've forgotten their login, they just see their school counselor and we can get them back in and reset it. If you as a parent would like your own account, just email your counselor or Miss Leon and we can get you the registration information. It's not a problem at all. Okay,
I
and now
did
we'll
just
take-
add Miss Leon's email as well to the chat. Counselors, if you want to do the same so that every parent will have your login, your email information as well.
Ms.
Okay.
Krupa, just do Miss Leon's again.
I just put it in the chat.
It's just spelled wrong, the last name.
Oh. Gabby, you sent yours directly just to me. You want to send that to the group. Same, Laura. You know what? I'll just do it. Laura, if you could just resend yours as well. You sent it directly to me. Okay. So at this time, we are going to open up the floor to parental questions. You can raise your hand. So if you scroll, like just take your mouse and put it on the bottom of the screen, you're going to see an icon with a hand. You can raise your hand and that gives you the ability to voice your question to us. And we can call on you, or you can just put your question in the chat and we will read the questions and answer them out loud. Okay. So I will read the parents' questions and then the counselors will be able to answer them. Naviance is asking for a registration code. Yes, that's what we are going to use Ms. Leon for. Do students get help with schools to find internship or summer leadership programs?
So what we normally do is if a student has an interest in a specific area, one of the first things that I suggest, for example, give an example, last year I had a student interested in architecture. So the first place I usually tell students to look is at the college that they are actually interested in attending. So in this case, it was Cooper Union or Pratt, schools that offer that architecture. They also had a pre-college program that was offered for high school students. This is a great opportunity to do two things. You're getting on the college campus. Sometimes they're offering that whole college experience. If it's a portfolio-based application, something like art or architecture, design, things of that nature, the professors at the pre-college program will also help with that. And I would suggest an internship, looking into those pre-college programs for anything, not just anything art-based, but a lot of our local colleges also offer pre-college programs. But in terms of us setting each student up with a specific internship, that is not something that we do. We don't have as many resources. If the students are in the AOF program, that is part of their certification, though, to do a internship prior to their senior year. And I know the advisors of AOF do assist, but they do not set it up completely for their students.
Okay, great, thank you. So if your child has no idea what they're interested in, is guidance available to help with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Ms. Green starts even as early as freshman year, having them take the assessments on Naviance, like Do What You Are, personality assessments. That could help. I mean, the ones they took freshman year have most definitely changed because they change their mind so often. So I would encourage your son or daughter to go back in. I can't share my screen again, but if you go under Naviance, there's a section for, I think it might be under the About Me. So where I was for resume and survey and find the assessments there and explore, but also tell your son or daughter not to be too worried, because 70%, more than 70% of all students going into college are undecided, and they're not supposed to really declare their major until second year of their college. So they have the time to explore different classes, very different than how they do here, and encourage them to take that time to pick kind of the direction they want to take once they decide on a major.
And I think too, why we're doing this now, for the juniors is that because I think exposure is really the most important thing at this point. And, we were mentioning like the Naviance has the reps that come to our school, even as juniors, they can attend those meetings as well. So even if there's a school that they figure, you know what, I really don't think I could see myself there. I don't know where it is. I know nothing about it. They can still go to the meetings. It's just all about really exposing yourself and just saying, you know what, by the springtime, maybe they'll have a better idea. But like I said, visiting campuses and just listening and gathering information, I think is really kind of key at this point too.
Thank you. Can parents participate in the one-to-one meetings with counselors? So for our scheduling meetings that we hold between January and March, we normally don't have parent participation in that just because the counselors are meeting with close to 200 students. And if we did have the parent participation, we just wouldn't have the time to get to everyone. But once we do start that process, a letter goes out to parents explaining it. And once we're completed with the process, a second letter goes out so that you can log onto Genesis and see all of your child's choices. And if from there you have any questions, the counselor would be happy to discuss that with you. The next question that we have is, how do you calculate the actual tuition that you'll be paying for college?
Oh, I'll take that one. That's actually a fantastic question. The finances are a big part of choosing a school. Like we said, you want it to be a financial fit as well as an academic fit. And all of the websites, when you go and look at a college on their website, if you type in the search bar net price calculator, it's going to give you like a little mini FAFSA. So the FAFSA stands for the free application for federal student aid that you will fill out after October of the senior year, utilizing your tax return. Okay, so the net price calculator is going to give you an estimate of what your expected family contribution would be from the FAFSA. So I usually say to parents, do one net price calculator, and then you'll get an idea of how much the government thinks you could pay for college. A lot of times it's a lot more than you feel you could actually pay. But also looking at the tuition and the fees and the price. So I'll take a New Jersey State school, for example. The tuition for a New Jersey State school or public school is going to be anywhere between $12,000 and $16,000 a year for a full-time student. So that's just tuition. If you add room and board on top of that, that's going to be another between $12,000 and $15,000. So most of our New Jersey State schools, you could be all in under $30,000 a year. All in meaning you decide to live there and books, fees, all of that. A private school, for example, is going to be very different. Stevens, for example, in Hoboken, also in New Jersey, but a private institution, their tuition, fees, all of that, now you're looking at up over $60,000. However, merit-based money, there's usually a little bit more money to give away from the private institutions. So sometimes with that, it can kind of be a moot point. And that's why we suggest doing both public and private and in-state and out-of-state schools on your list to see which ones will give you your best bet.
Thank you, Ms. Lawler. What is the process in getting a job permit approval in the school? I think the parent is asking for working papers. So if your child gets a job outside of school, they then will they can get the working papers in the guidance office, but a student must have a job first, because the first part that's going to be filled out is by the employer. So once the student is employed somewhere, they would come to us, we would sign all the paperwork for them. The next question is, on average, how many college does a student typically apply to?
So we tell them what, like 6 to 10, maybe 6 to 8, but usually you'll have the ones that apply like 10 plus 20. But I don't know about the other counselors, but I always say 6 to 8. You get a couple targets, couple reach, a couple safeties, and that's it. That's all you need.
More applications equals more stress, which equals more money. And we try to have our seniors kind of be complete with their process prior to the New Year break. We also like to be complete with like our letters and all of that, because then we shift our attention, you know, to our juniors doing the scheduling and all of that come January. So it's a nice goal to have everything done in terms of your essays and applications by the new year. Also, most regular decision application dates are January 1st anyway. So, you know, our timeline kind of coincides with the college timelines as well. But yes, I agree. The students that do over 10 tend to be very overwhelmed, because in addition to just the college essay, the more competitive the school, the more writing supplements are going to be on that application. So in addition to the essay, they might have 3 or 4 supplements just for the one application. And it's very time consuming.
And you know, it kind of loses like that personal feel as to where you really see yourself. I mean, you can apply to 20 schools, and I've had students apply to 20 and only visit 2. Then they kind of wait to see what happens when they get their replies back. But it kind of loses that feel of, do I really see myself at this particular school, or am I just applying just to see if I'm going to get in? So there's a couple of ways you can look at it.
And as a parent, are you okay? These applications vary from $30 to $90 per application fee. And if you don't get in, you don't get your money back. I get that question every year. We get our money back.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question we have is, how do you determine if you should take the SAT or ACT? And is that decision driven by the schools in which you apply? So something I just want to add to that, when I send out this presentation to you, I am going to resend some resources that went out with the PSAT letter that I sent in October. And it's some online SAT, ACT prep. So you can actually take mini ACT, like a mini ACT and a mini SAT, to see where you score better. And that's also helpful in determining what test you should take. But I'll let someone else answer. Is that decision driven by the schools in which you apply?
I mean, this year it was not required by most schools, but I still encourage my students to take at least one. I think going into next year, a lot of schools have still made it optional. But again, I encourage my students to take it once or twice. Some schools, even though they're optional, we've heard are like, let's go like we used to. Let's be like it was pre-COVID. It helps us make a decision. It gets a decision to the student faster. So I think preparing for it and pretending like we're back to normal is the best way to look at it, and take at least 1 or 2 and prepare.
But the colleges don't require SAT or ACT specifically. It can be either or, really. It just, which test does your student feel more comfortable with? And the only way to determine that is by taking those practice tests that Ms. Karuba is putting up.
That actually answered the next question. So I will move to the following one. Does Naviance cover all colleges across the world, the US, or just regional?
It's all US, but there are a few UK, right?
There are from, if you put in a name of a country, it will come up with colleges from that country.
It might not be all the colleges in that country, because I
Right.
was looking for, you know, an international school for one of my students and it didn't pop up. But we could always, a lot of times the documents don't get sent electronically to the international school. So we can always add that. So if you are planning on applying outside of the country, that is okay. And we can get the documents where they need to be.
When do students start applying for college?
So the applications will normally open before senior year. So like, that's why we suggest starting that Common App in the summer, getting the demographic information filled out. This past summer, Ms. Brown and I did a college application boot camp in August. If we get approval again, that's definitely something we could do for our current juniors. That was helpful because they got kind of the clerical kind of what do I have to do on Naviance and on Common App out of the way, and then they could just focus on finishing up their essay and getting buttoning up their application. But that's the best time to start in the summer.
But they wouldn't necessarily apply in the summer.
Right.
No, starting your application, and then you would press submit and actually do that depending on your due date. So early action 11/1 is the normal early action due date. So you can press submit anytime prior to that you feel ready.
Thank you. Our next question is, Can someone be a little bit more specific, and I'll answer this, on Mr. Diego's role in the school? Is there a discipline issue? So Mr. Lombardo is our vice principal. Mr. Diaz, who was one of our vice principals, is now acting vice principal at school number 1. So we've replaced him with Mr. Lombardo. No, he's not necessarily just a disciplinarian. He oversees 2 grade levels. So anything that has to do with student management in grades 9 and 11, he handles. So it could be a disciplinary infraction. It could be an attendance issue. It could be running assemblies for those grade levels. So he is just the administrator over those 2 specific grade levels. And so I would not say that we have a disciplinary issue in the building. So our next question is, do athletes have to take the SAT or ACT in order to be eligible for NCAA?
So, yeah, I mean, in previous years, yes, it's a requirement. It's part of the academic eligibility. In this year, it was waived, just like many schools just waived it generally for the admissions population. I'm not 100% certain if next year's cycle will also be waived. But again, I think it's very important that a student take it just in case. So I would plan, if your son or daughter is going to apply to a Division I or a Division II school, it's in their best interest just to have it.
I agree.
Just in case.
Yes.
And it'll be a little bit easier to register this year because I
Right.
know last year a lot of our testing dates were canceled. So as your students, as they're juniors now, they'll have more opportunity to, you know, we're offering it here a couple times, other neighboring schools. So it's a little bit easier, I think, at this point to register. So I would kind of look at that sooner than later. Make sure your child has a College Board account and just sort of see the dates where the location is and kind of get on that. If not December, this one is December coming up. It's probably full here. The next one would be in March, not here, but at another neighboring school. But it starts to kind of dwindle out between March and June. So you just want to kind of get on that before end of school year.
And you should be getting some kind of email correspondence from me very soon. This is one of the reasons that we are looking to offer an in-school test day to all of our juniors, just to ensure that they all have the opportunity to take it. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that is going to be an option. And one of the last questions that we do have is in regards to financial aid, do all colleges require a CSS profile? And before we answer that question, just so you parents who do know, in probably September of everyone's senior year, we do have a financial aid presentation. Well, we have a financial aid expert come in and kind of walk you guys through the financial aid process. So do keep an eye out for that come September.
So in answer to that, the CSS profile is usually required by some private schools, not all, but it would be a private school. So let's say Rutgers, Montclair, any of the public schools would not require that, but a public college might. And be prepared, it's FAFSA on steroids. It goes deeper, it asks more questions, it really wants to get more financial information. And a lot of the financial aid package or merit scholarships might be based on that.
And you could check the participating colleges on College Board. You can actually do it by state. The only private school in New Jersey that requires the CSS is Stevens. All of the other private schools do not. They would just take the FAFSA.
Okay, it looks like we have one more question. So if anyone does have any questions, please put them in the chat. And then we are going to end our presentation. But the next question we have is, can a student take the SAT or ACT more than once? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. We normally recommend at least 2 times. I personally don't think going above 3 really becomes super beneficial unless they've, after the second one, they took a huge SAT prep course. Then maybe you would want to take the 3rd, but 2 is normally what we do suggest. And yes, this presentation will be shared with everyone probably sometime in early next week. We'll be sending out a copy of the video as well as the slides and some SAT prep information.
And one other thing that we offer, we really love checklists, or I really love checklists here in the counseling office. So we took the whole presentation, and we do have a 1-page checklist to kind of keep all of our juniors in line. And we'll post that on Google Classroom as well.
And the only other last thing, that I want to add is that all of this information is great. Naviance College Planning early as possible. But I always tell my students, just don't take your eye off the fact that this is junior year. You keep your grades up, because when that GPA comes out next year, basically what you're looking at when you start applying would be freshman, sophomore, and junior year combined. Colleges, yes, look at senior year, your courses and all that good stuff, but you know, I have students who are involved in prep courses and SAT courses each weekend, and it's great, but just make sure that, you know, they're really focusing on their courses junior year, because that's really going to tell a lot by the end of the school year.
Thank you, Ms. Cadell. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Oh, wait, we do have one more question. Is the AP Honors certification beneficial for the college application? So yes, taking AP and honors courses is definitely beneficial to when a student applies to college, as long as the student does well in those classes. So if a student is going to get an A and a B in a college prep level class, but maybe get a C in an honors or an AP class, we always recommend to go with where you belong. So you belong in that class where you're going to get the A and the B. If you can get that A and a B in an honors and an AP class, then yes, we definitely recommend it. But keep in mind, we do have 3 criteria that student need to meet in order to go into an honors and AP class. Teacher recommendation, a GPA, and current academic achievement in the course in which they want to take that honors or AP class. And AP tests, are they beneficial for the college application? So a lot of our kids take their APs in senior year, so they would not necessarily have that score to send with their application. But if they do have a score from junior year or even sophomore year, if they took the AP history class, and it is a good score, yes, it can be sent with the application as just another resource on the student's academic standing. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. It was great to have this opportunity to give you guys some information, and hopefully soon we'll be able to move these meetings back to in person. Thank you and have a great morning.